Hi, and welcome to Wine Uncorked with Tower. My name is Gil Coolers, and I'm the wine consultant at Tower Beer, Wine, and Spirits here in Atlanta, Georgia. Today, we're going to talk about the 3 ways to make sparkling wines. Now, before I get any letters, yes, there are more than 3 methods to make sparkling wines. However, these 3 methods are the way that almost all the sparkling wines in the world are made, and in fact, the other methods are more or less a variation on these 3 methods. So let's get started. The first method is known as the soda method. In the soda method, the winemaker will take a still wine and simply inject carbon dioxide into the wine. A cork is put in the bottle, it is labeled, and it is ready for sale. The second method is called the CHARMAT method. It was invented in 1895 by an Italian gentleman named Federico Martinati in 1895. The method was perfected by a French enologist known as Eugene Charmat, and that's how it gets its name. With the CHARMAT method, the winemaker will take a large stainless steel tank and put in hundreds, if not thousands, of gallons of still wine. The winemaker will then put in the requisite amount of yeast and the requisite amount of sugar, and then they will close the tank so it is airtight. The yeast will make a little bit more alcohol, but most importantly, it will produce carbon dioxide. That's where we get the bubbles. Over a period of the next few days, if not a couple of weeks, the yeast will produce all the alcohol and carbon dioxide that it can, and the secondary fermentation will be finished. At that point, the yeast is filtered out, the newly sparkling wine is bottled, it is corked, it is labeled, and it is ready to ship. There are many winemakers use the CHARMAT method around the world, but it's mostly associated with Italy, especially with the production of Prosecco, like this La Marca Prosecco. Italian winemakers who make Prosecco really enjoy using the CHARMAT method because it lends itself to the grape that is most commonly used. That is the Glera grape. The Glera grape is best described as one that has a perfumey, light, aromatic wine with notes of tart citrus fruits. And if the winemaker were to leave that newly sparkling wine in contact with the yeast cells, it would overshadow what we have come to know Prosecco to be: a light, perfumey, tart, lemony wine. The third method is the one that we're probably most familiar with, is the méthode traditionnelle, also known as the traditional method. This is a method that most people are familiar with, and you can look at the traditional method as mini CHARMAT methods. So each bottle is an individual container that the winemaker will put the still wine in, much like the tank that the CHARMAT winemakers do, and then a little bit of sugar and a little bit of yeast. And then a top is put on, the yeast ferment the sugar in the wine, carbon dioxide is made, and at this point we do have a finished wine, but this is where the CHARMAT method and the traditional method tend to part ways, because most winemakers using the traditional method will leave the wine in contact with the dead yeast cells for an extended period of time. I'll use champagne as an example. If we have a non-vintage champagne, by law, the wine must stay in contact with the lees for a minimum of 15 months. If there is a vintage date on the bottle, that wine would have stayed in contact on the lees for a minimum of 36 months. But these are minimums. Many winemakers go much further. Some wines will stay on the lees for 5 or even as long as 10 years before it is disgorged. So the next time you're in the wine shop and you wonder, why are the wines on the top shelf so much more expensive than the wines on the bottom shelf? Understand that the winemakers have to go through many more steps with the méthode traditionnelle than any other winemaking process that I'm aware of, and hence the higher price. Thanks for watching, and thanks for shopping at Tower.